It's a late night voiceover for Screenwriter's Journey, day 161. I always tell myself I'm not going to do these after 10 o'clock at night, but here we go. If I yawn more than 6 times, I'm going to stop. So, wow, 161. Page 39. Okay. Maybe later. All right, so I got to hear yesterday, then I went way back and was redoing some stuff. So we leave that scene kind of with a mini cliffhanger with Jake saying, I've got a question to ask. And then, yeah, I did this yesterday too. Feds are tight-lipped. Like I said, changed my mind. She says, I really think she take like she says. They all get out. They cry and catch multiple times. I mean, that's that block of dialogue that Luke has on 40. I'm trying to shorten it up, but well, I shorten it up. These are coming in a couple of weeks. That the thing about the college that goes back to the first, well, not the first draft, but we'll call it the first version of the script. And I never knew, and maybe obviously still don't know, how much the audience will care about what happens after the movie. That's always something that's interesting to wonder if you need to allude, depending on, the genre and everything, do you need to allude what's going to happen afterwards? Obviously, if it's a romantic comedy or a romance, it's the happily ever after or the tragic thing. If it obviously sets up a sequel, like Back to the Future, etc., then, it obviously you do care. But in any given movie that's self-contained, and I know everyone wants a sequel, because I know I mentioned that one of the women who read this said, oh, you better start working on the sequel. But I certainly see this as just a self-contained movie. So given that, do we the screenwriter, need to worry about if the audience is going to wonder what happens after the movie's over? Because obviously the backstory kind of tells them what happened up to the point the movie started to some extent, or at least, yeah, I mean, to some extent. Here's the situation they're in. In this one, it's a little different because we meet Lexi when she's really little, and we kind of know what happened during those 12 years. Whereas Holly, we don't really know why she got into the U.S. Marshals. In the previous version, it was sort of alluded to that her dad was in the Army or something, and she sort of did it for him. But we don't really know now that I think about it. But, do you have to know why they came to be where they are at the beginning of the film? And then sort of likewise, do we need to know what's going to happen to them after the film? So that the whole conversation is around that thing about college, and does it matter, the logistics of where she's going to live and all that kind of stuff. And I think I sort of decided that it's really not that important. Certainly I wouldn't say, it's crucial or anything. So that's what I'm trying to work on that scene. Now we've moved. So Holly's first line in that scene tells us that it's been 30 minutes. Isn't that tricky? 5 minutes away, you don't get ahead by settling. So there's a double meaning. She agrees. So they're clearly flirting with their voices and with their expressions and eyes, whatever. Holly is not a big fan of that. I mean, that's kind of a funny line, maybe, but does it really belong here? Let's see. Nope. And then we change the subject. Changing the subject in the middle of the scene is always a tricky thing, because certainly you don't want like them to literally talk through a subject, then there's a pregnant pause, and it's like, oh, well, now let's talk about something else. certainly that's a way to do it. It's probably the wrong way and kind of the lazy way. Another way is just totally abruptly, that it doesn't seem to have any lead in at all. It could be an awkward situation, and then it just bang, you don't literally say, now let's change the topic, but it suddenly goes somewhere else. I think the best way is if dialogue or the situation can lend itself or open the door to someone either misinterpreting what was said and then the subject gets changed and then it moves on, or it's kind of an oblique reference to something and that sparks an idea and then the subject changes. But that's, and then do you really want to or need to or should you change the subject in a scene if it's a self-contained thing and it's a building block of the script that's moving you forward? Is it going to be confusing to move it ahead? And I don't think that's necessarily always the case if what you're changing the subject to has already been talked about, just not in that scene. So, for instance, Holly saying, what's the first question you're going to ask her? Certainly, they may have had that conversation before, so it's not like she's bringing it up out of the blue. So we know the scene is, well, we don't know the scene's close to ending, but this is our exit, meaning we're about to exit the highway and the scene. And then, of course, what better question is there than why? Okay, so now this is very tail end of the scene, which is quite a huge plot point when Jake says, I'd be happy to be there, or I'd like to be there when you meet her. So that's a very forward thing, kind of a bold thing, definitely a not expected thing for him to say. As I write there, his offer catches them both off guard. And I don't know if I had this planned already, if this is virgin writing. I guess it is. I can't remember. But this, now to explain that, and I don't know if I've done it already because, again, this is December 31st that I'm writing this, and today is February 15th. Oh my gosh, 6 weeks again. Gosh, that's crazy. It's just crazy. I just can't get caught up with these voiceovers. You didn't. Okay. I mean, that's kind of a sweet thing, but where does this come from that he wants to meet Lexi's mom? Is it just because he, in this short amount of time, he really likes her that much, thinks that much of her, kind of feels for her? Why is he doing that? And I don't know at this point if I had that idea or not. I mean, the reason why, what is in his backstory, other than maybe liking Lexi, that he would want to meet Rachel. It's obviously going to come out because I think some things have to have an explanation. Obviously, not everything does. I'm just thinking of scripts and what is the motivation for any given act. Not act like 1, 2, and 3. That was a hidden yawn. You didn't hear that. But act like as in an action. Can they just spring out of nowhere? How motivated do they have to be? How much earlier in the script did the motivation occur? Can it occur within the scene? Certainly, there's plenty of wrong answers. I don't know that there's one right answer. Three's a crowd. You're not planning on being there. You're not. It's your decision. But I thought, I don't know. A few minutes alone with her. So I'm kind of still toying with this idea of, does Lexi go in by herself? Does Holly go in? Had Holly been planning to go in? Now that Jake wants to go with her, will Holly raise a stink? Will he? Not that she necessarily can stop him. It's your call. Thank you. So I think this is a good start at where I want to go. I think it needs a little more explanation. I think it definitely needs shortening. I don't know how long this scene is, but I have a feeling it's too long. And then Jake and Holly sort of end up not exactly the mutual admiration society, but whatever was between them tension-wise kind of gets dissipated a little bit. You can escape. So they're there at the Eagle Creek. I don't know what I may have been printing something on my 3D printer. Hey, if you want me to print something and show it to you, leave a comment and then subscribe and like and share. I haven't said that lately. Watch The Key on Amazon Prime. No one has watched it. It's just sitting there in the Amazon library. I had mentioned it was about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, when it started getting a bunch of views in the UK, which was pretty sweet. Every day I would check it. I didn't make any money off it to speak of, but it was just fun. It was cool to see like 50 people a day were watching it, which kind of sounds like chump change, but in the grand scheme of things it is, but it's kind of cool still to think people were seeing something that you had wrote and directed and put all that time and effort into. It's kind of cool. All right, so they're there. She goes in, checking for bad guys. Yeah, this is not good. I mean, it's a Luke thing that he would say, but it's and tells him to, oh my gosh, one more yawn and I'm out. Tells him to wait in the car. So she goes in, and so now I guess this is like virgin writing here. So this is going to be the introduction of Rachel's ex running the cabins. No, it's going to be the introduction of. I'm just going to keep saying of until you see the name. Not really. Trying to set him up. And I know I've had this conversation with myself before of when you are introducing a character and you introduce him off screen, do you use his name even though no one knows who he is? Do you use just generic man or woman? What exactly do you do? But to drag out the suspense a little bit longer, Lexi comes in and she sort of has to be there when You Know Who comes out and makes his appearance because of this change I made where she makes the deal that if she was the deal that if she follows through on this, Holly would have to go out with the next cute guy she meets, or was there some other deal? I guess I'd have to look back. I think it was just yesterday. So Holly says, I told you wait in the car. Lexi says, you didn't say for how long. She could just as easily say, I did. Because she never said until I get back. There he is, Hogan. That was not a yawn. So Lexi comes up and tells her what maybe the audience is already guessing, that this is the guy. And this is really the first time, well, of course it is because we haven't seen Holly around adult men relatively her age, in her range, where he is sort of, she's a little bit, well, no, she's not really Twitter-pated. I did use that word later on, and I hope I got rid of it. it's more like she doesn't even want to consider, no matter who he was, how good looking he is or handsome or whatever. She just, so I said she gives Lexi that dismissive look. Like, it's not really offended. It's just more like, oh, please don't bother me. We don't have time. And then Hogan, he is, we don't know anything about him, but we know that he knows a pretty woman, so to speak, when he seizes her. Seizes her. Double tree tops. This is one for you, one for your daughter. Sorry, younger sister, slightly younger. And then Lexi has that line. I mean, again, this is funny. It's kind of not really flirty. I don't know if it is. Not a big flirter myself, never was. So, too cute, I don't know. Too pat, too trite. It's kind of a younger, or it's kind of a variation on a theme. The younger, slightly younger. Him, excuse me, we are expecting a visitor female. Pulls off clip is supposed none of my business, but just, so then I got off on this little tangent of kind of a misunderstanding. It's maybe Hogan knows, but it's kind of supposed to be funny or silly or something. So please indulge me for a minute, because I don't really think we need banter between them at this point of the script. Speaking of that, if this is truly page 45, if it was a 90-minute film like I just watched on TV, Shut In, that was about 88 minutes. And that, went bang, bang, bang. I did watch that. I watched it twice the second time with my daughter, but I also kept track sort of the beats and the acts. And it was pretty much held true to the 3-act structure. But if this was going to be an hour-and-a-half movie, this would be the midpoint. So, the midpoint being the false victory or the false defeat, it would have to be something with Holly and Hogan. But having said that, this is not the midpoint of the movie. This is still the fun and games. And that was a pause for drama. It's the introduction of the love interest. Show up where we are sure the second one, and you even if we did. So, that little bit about more traditional couples, and regardless of how you use them, you can just pretend that's already been deleted. Sure, any luggage, again, not staying the night. So Hogan trying to be nice, obviously in a courteous way, but also maybe in a not really flirty way, but obviously already showing some interest in her. So by now, Holly is not a prude by any means, but she's all business. And so when Lexi says that, scuffs, something like that, my favorite sound that my kids hate when I do that. I just can't break the habit. So Lexi obviously consumed with the idea, and Holly's like, you're about to meet your mother, and you're worried about a bet you made. And Lexi says, plain and simple, something which you'll read when you see what she says. What is it? What will she say? There we go. I knew that. I just didn't want to give it away. So in this very short bit, I think Holly, likes what she sees in Hogan enough to not totally dismiss Lexi out of hand, the idea that, hey, I made the bet, but even so, this guy's kind of I debated whether to use the word cute to describe him or handsome, obviously good looking, attractive these days. I guess I did ask, I think I asked someone, at what age can a guy no longer be cute? Because you go, oh, that's a cute guy, or I just met a cute guy. And I guess, he's late 30s, so he could be handsome too, rugged, whatever. He's an Army guy. So we'll see. But that's a pretty good batch of writing. And if it sounds like I'm wrapping up, it's because we've got 15 seconds left in this day, and I'm going to try to go right out on the button. So we've got the introduction of Hogan, and script is moving along. See you soon.